Welcome back. Our first off-season edition of the Clutch Pearl Pod. We are less than 24 hours removed from the national title game. UConn went back to back. Honestly, it wasn't that great of a game. I wasn't that impressed. We all kind of knew it was going to happen. But without further ado, we'll jump right into that. UConn with I'm going to call it destruction because Zach Edey might have had 37 points, but it was total destruction of the Boilermakers by UConn. Just give me your initial thoughts on that game, your overall review of the game, I guess.
Well, Dan Hurley said after the Final Four game, he was going to watch roughly about six full games of Purdue games. And one thing that I really took was that he watched that second game that Illinois played against Purdue. And I don't want to go too much into Illinois, but that game plan was almost identical to Underwood's, which Illinois fell a little bit short because they didn't knock down some shots in that game. But it was basically we're going to let Edey get his, and we're going to guard everybody else. And that's exactly what Hurley did. And he, in a roundabout way, he said after the game that their game plan was to let Edey get his and don't let Jones, Lawyer, and Smith beat you. If Kaufman Wren beats you, whatever. If Heidi beats you, whatever. But the main focus was to let Edey score his, or in a sense, go one-on-one with Klingon and take away everybody else, and it worked to perfection.
I think one reason why UConn could do that so well, and like no disrespect to any other teams that have played Purdue or UConn, but UConn's guards are just so much better than everybody. I mean, there's exceptions like Illinois. Terrence Shannon's one of the best, if not the best guard in the country, but I mean, year 1 through 3 on UConn are just so much more physically and athletically imposing. Like Stephon Castle's 6'5" and was getting guarded by, I mean, Lawyer's 6'4", but just a lot smaller than him. They're not the same caliber of athletes. And you can see that this is the first game, and I heard the stat earlier. It's a ridiculous amount. It's like 300 some games that Purdue has taken under 8 threes per game, and they were
Yeah,
1 for 7. They were 1 for 7 last night, and that all is just on the backcourt, just imposing their will on Purdue's backcourt.
yeah. And one thing I want to shout out, I don't think NBA teams are going to do it, but Stephon Castle should be the number one pick. That
He,
dude,
he, he'll
if
be
he
a he'll
was
be
in
a high first round for sure.
yeah, high first round, but I think both the Kentucky guards are going to go over him, and I don't think I agree. But the reason they're going to go over him is because they had opportunities to score at will, whereas he was like probably the fourth option on a UConn squad that blew through everybody in the tournament. But he also guarded everyone's best player, and I mean, he's the only guard all year long that just took away Terrence Shannon. He's the only guard all year long that uh, really took away Braden Smith. You know, he had some off games, but nobody ever really took him away from driving and shooting a three. I mean, he couldn't get anything but fadeaway mid-range jumpers off, and he wasn't making them last night.
Yeah, he just outmatched Braden Smith just as a human being. There was nothing Braden Smith could do about it. I mean, even Cam Spencer was getting after those guys. He's more in the league of Lawyer and Smith, but let's I want to hit on Donovan Clingan for a little bit because he's kind of been getting trashed online because Edey had 37 points, but like that was the game plan all along. And, like he played his role. He played his role well. He did a lot of things off the ball and on the defensive end to kind
Yeah,
of contain Edey a little bit. And him not fouling out, like him staying out of foul trouble in the first half. I think he got into some late in the game when it didn't really matter, but him staying out of foul trouble in the first half is huge for them.
I don't know. I mean, I get he gave up 37 and 10 or whatever, but everybody else doubled Edey except for them and Illinois pretty well are the only teams that didn't really double Edey in the post. And I mean, they still did some with Spencer, just not often. Uh, but Klingon still did the same thing he really did all tournament and all year long. He gives up some points trying to block shots or trying to stay out of foul trouble at times. Uh, but he affected, I mean, Purdue's guards, if they went inside, Lance Jones was the only guy that could even come close to finishing at the rim. And that was just pure athleticism, being able to get up and under him. Everybody else, Lawyer, Smith, even Kaufman Wren, had some trouble shooting at the rim because Klingon was affecting shots. And that's what they did against Alabama. That's what he did against Illinois. That's what he did all tournament and all year long. It's not the post players that he locked down. It's honestly the other guy's shots. And the fact that he's 7'2" and can knock down threes with relative ease when he's open, that's going to be huge. And some NBA team's going to be very lucky to have him because he's a guy that can rival the Jokic's and the Embiids of the world.
Um, well, I'll just roll right with that and into the NBA. Where let's take a step back. How would you define Zach Edey's college legacy? And then after we get by that, we'll go. What do you think his impact of the NBA will be if he has any?
Uh, Best Purdue player of all time, uh, probably the best post player in the modern era. Sorry, Anthony Davis, and sorry, Zion, a few others, but I don't think I've ever seen Hansbrough's another one I can think of. Nobody had the impact that he did since, like, say, 2000 when we were alive. Uh, Nobody's had the impact inside that he has. That being said, uh, there's some things to his game that's missing that could be troublesome to the NBA and why he's not a top 10 pick. He's a first round pick, but he's not a top 10 pick. And it's because he can't do the things that Klingon and Coleman Hawkins can. And that's shoot the three and guard 1 through 5. Uh,
And
he
I'll
can
play a
pretty well
little.
only guard 5 men.
I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate on that. I mean, that is definitely the biggest thing that is lacking in his game is jump shooting. Like he cannot do it. But when you're playing in the NBA as opposed to college, where you still have to be a student, and your job is now basketball. You have every minute of every day to train. You have people designated to you to train. Like I think that's something he can develop in the NBA if he will. Like Joel Embiid could not shoot the three 5 years ago, and he got good at that over one off season. So I think I
Yeah,
think we can I think it can be developed in Edie. That's just if someone wants to take the chance on doing that. You know what I mean?
well, yeah, but the thing about Embiid though is he did. I'm not positive, but I believe when he was at Kansas, he did make a few threes. It just wasn't something he did consistently, and it was the same way when he first got to the NBA. Now, I mean, he's a great shooter, great ball handler. Probably, I mean, he's a unicorn now. But and that could be something that Edey could develop, but it's going to take a team like this that are in a situation like the Sixers were when they drafted Embiid to be able to do this. I mean, they're going to have to. It'll be 5 years down the line before he can make a three. And the biggest issue though is that with Zach Edey, does he have 5 years to develop? He's what, probably 23, 24 already. Embiid was 18 or 19 when he entered the league.
Yeah.
He was a one and done,
I could
and I think
I
that's
could
the
see
big thing.
his NBA situation winding up a lot like Frank Kaminsky did. What was that back in 2016 or whenever he joined the league, where he was a dominant college player and it never took off for him in the NBA. I could see that happening to Edie. Just because, like you said, he's a grown man. He's probably closer to 30 than he is 20 now at this point. But
I think he's got a role in the NBA. I do, because even now, I mean, look at Andre Drummond. He's still got a role in the NBA with the Bulls. There's still a place for a guy like that on every roster, but he's going to be more of a journeyman center of the Drummond, JaVale McGee mold than he is a superstar like he is in college, unless he can develop that three and ball handling skills. Then it's a little bit different. But his style of play is closer to Shaq and Yao Ming's than it is today's
Yeah,
centers, and you can't play like that in today's NBA.
no, it's all about. I mean, produced style of play in general just does not correlate to the NBA. Like they do not
Not at all.
play. They've been that way forever too. Before Edey, they had Isaac Haas, and it's just bang it into the post and let them work. It's not quote unquote efficient basketball. And
Yeah, and it's
another thing that concerns me with him in the NBA, the dude cannot guard a ball screen to save his life. And he's just going to get thrown into those possession after possession in the NBA, kind of like he already has in high school or college, sorry.
yeah, and that's what I was getting. That's what I said when I said he can't guard 1 through 5. When you look at what they want in today's center, they honestly could give two craps less if a guy can actually guard a Jokic or an Embiid in the post, because they'll just double it or do whatever they got to do to get the ball out of their hands. Their biggest thing is, can you guard 1 through 5? Because when you look at basically every roster, there's a few guards, Curry and Thompson to name a few, or a couple, excuse me, with the Warriors. But for the most part, almost every team, they got guys guarding 1 through 5. And unless they're a unicorn, as far as like a shooter like Curry and Thompson are, like they're not making it in the NBA, no matter what position you are, whether you're playing guard, forward, or center. So, yeah, he's destined for a bench role that's going to get 10 to 15 minutes a game, probably. Just come in there and get rebounds and kick it out.
So we'll move on. We've got a jam-packed next section here. So the season is over and the second season begins, and it was happening before the title game even happened. So let's go into that coaching carousel a little bit. What do you got to say about that?
Okay, a lot of people do not realize this, but this started the moment that Texas and Oklahoma decided to take their talents to the SEC. And that is because when that happened, then, well, USC and UCLA were like, we got to go to the Big Ten. Washington and Oregon said, we got to follow you. Arizona State, Colorado, there's a couple others in the Pac 12 said, well, now we got to go to the Big 12. And that leaves Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State. Cal and Stanford said, well, we can't be missing out. And the ACC says, man, we love how prestigious academically these schools are and the money they have, donors they have. Let's bring them to the ACC, pay them the ACC. SMU says, wait. We will come in for free. We got the money. We got the donors. We got the rich history. We just need a conference. Let us in the ACC. And the ACC, knowing that Florida State and Clemson have 1 foot out the door, and if they have 1 foot out the door, Duke and North Carolina are probably following them and going as a package deal, probably to the Big Ten, but maybe the SEC, but more likely the Big Ten. So they say, we're going to take SMU. Well, then SMU says, hell, I mean, what are we doing? We can't have Rob Lanier as our head coach. We need a name that people love. So let's bring in Mr. Dunk City from USC and Andy Enfield. Andy Enfield says, That's a big paycheck that I can't turn down. So he heads to the ACC to coach SMU. Then Grant's old buddy that drives the Must bus, and Eric Musselman says, I've always wanted to go back to SoCal, so I'm taking my talents to USC. And that brings us to today. John Calipari leaves Kentucky and takes his talents to Arkansas because he understood that his welcome had worn out. What have you got to say, Grant?
I mean, I couldn't even tie the circle back that far. That was pretty good. I was not expecting that.
I'll be honest with you. I heard I was watching a podcast earlier. I can't remember. I think it was from On Three, but and they had an analyst that mentioned something along those lines. He didn't even tie it all the way back to Texas and Oklahoma, though. I think his just went to like Washington and Oregon.
So I'm gonna skip about 20 steps of where you just went. I'm gonna start at Musselman leaving Arkansas, which I mean, if you look at it, you kind of saw it coming. The rumors were starting as early as last year, and he's kind of a journeyman anyway. I mean, his name was tied to Louisville. His name was tied to, I think I heard him at Ohio State one time. But he's a West Coast guy through and through. Makes sense for him to go back there. That's where his family's from. So be it. Maybe not as good as a basketball school as Arkansas in the current state of college basketball, but more power to him. Hope he does well. Appreciate everything he did for Arkansas. This is like, as an Arkansas fan, this is where it got nuts. I mean, names were getting thrown out everywhere. Apparently, we went after Beard. Beard said no. Apparently, we went after Jerome Tang. Jerome Tang said no. We were interviewing the guy from University of Arkansas Little Rock on Sunday, and then I just saw one tweet on Twitter that said Calipari to Arkansas confirmed. I
Guess
was
who
like,
it was
well,
from? Trilly Donovan.
I was like, there's there's no way this is happening. This man signed a lifetime contract. Norlander from CBS gets on there. No buyout if Cal decides to leave and doesn't get fired. This is happening. Johnny Tyson's putting down the money. And I mean, it hasn't been officially announced, but they got pictures of him up in Arkansas right now. So it's pretty much going to happen, and it's going to lead to some more big dominoes falling. Because I mean, Kentucky, I don't care who you are, Kentucky is a job you have to at least pick up that phone when Barnhart calls you. But let's rewind it a bit. What I got a lot to say on this, but I'll ask you first. What can Calipari do at Arkansas?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things he can do, but it can go one of two ways, and you kind of mentioned it. It can either go how he's been trending, and most of his freshmen follow him, all those guys that he had committed, and he continues to be a first or second weekend guy. Can't make it out of the second weekend for sure because he's playing a bunch of freshmen in a veteran world. So he's got 18, 19-year-olds playing against 25-year-olds. Or he can do as he discussed in his press conference, and what he's probably going to have to do in year one because it's a little late, and a couple of those guys have already said they're staying with Kentucky. They chose a school, not the coach. And it's going to be, he's going to have to hit the portal hard because, I mean, Musselman, love him or hate him, he left you with a bare effort, which is honestly probably what Calipari wanted. He probably
Yeah,
wanted his own guys.
I think there's one walk on still in Arkansas and zero players who saw any minutes are left, as well
Yeah,
as
and
one
all the
staff member from Eric Musselman is left.
yeah, and all the freshmen bowed out and either said they're going with Musselman or they're going somewhere else. But I think Calipari has a good chance because I still think he's a pretty good X's and O's coach. A lot of people don't. I do. I just think he lacks some execution due to some youth, and that's why he struggled recently in this elder statesman world. He's going to have to use the portal. I think it's going to work, and I think you're going to make a deep run in year one. I'm not saying how far because it all depends on draw. I mean, look at this. Nobody probably thought that this was Illinois' best team, and this is the one they went to the Elite Eight. I think now you look at the numbers, and you're like, okay, maybe they were, but nobody thought that before. They just finally got a good draw. They got Duquesne in the round of 32, and probably an overseed Iowa State, you know. But so it takes some draw. But I think Calipari makes a deep run in year one. He realizes, oh, okay, maybe I do need some older guys. He likes coaching young guys because he likes sending guys to the NBA. So now instead, he's going to take guys that are probably cast off. He's not ever going to be the guy that goes and takes a fifth-year seniors or fourth-year seniors or whatever, grad transfers. He's going to take the guys transferring probably from mid-majors like Antonio Reeves was when he got him. He's just going to do more of that, and I think that he's going to be successful doing that, and that's going to be his new way of recruiting.
I think I texted to you a few times that I think it can go one of two ways for Arkansas. But either way, it's going to help them in the long run, just being a national name. But it's going to be Arkansas basketball version of Saban at Alabama, or it's going to be Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. Which I'm not saying he's gonna win the championships that Saban has. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's like successful wise, like Final Fours, Elite Eights. I think that's your benchmark. It's like people outside of the basketball world think Arkansas and they're like, oh, a bunch of rednecks, dumb kids, dumb school. But like historically, Arkansas is, I'd say it's the top 25 basketball program
Oh,
in the country.
absolutely.
Like they
I would
have
make
they
the
have
case for top 15.
they have the facilities, the funding, they have anything you need to be successful there. And so it all depends on what Calipari we're going to get. Are we going to get the one we've had the last 5 years? He can get the recruits, but he's kind of stuck in the mud. Or is it going to be like he just got a divorce and he's got a fresh outlook on life and he's going to start hitting the gym and eating right and doing things the right way? Which I hope it's the latter as an Arkansas fan, but I would, it's up in the air. Technically, he's not even the coach yet, so we could just be speculating. He could pull a U-turn on us here. But no, I agree with you. Look, the money they're giving him is insane. Have you seen those numbers?
Yeah, but you want to know something? It's actually less. It's like 250,000 a year less, I think, than what he was making at
Oh,
Kentucky.
I'm talking NIL money.
Now, NIL wise, he's getting
And
more, and
that's
Musselman
just from
cannot be happy seeing that because that's a big reason why he wanted to leave was they would not give him the NIL money that he wanted.
and according to reports, that's just the guaranteed figure from like one donor. That's not counting everything else. I mean, he's gonna have anything he wants at his disposal to build this whichever way he wants. I mean, he's 65 years old, so 5 years, if he can get to a Final Four, I would consider it. I would consider it a success.
Yeah, and I think a big reason why he was wanting that NIL money, and that's why I think part of why that's like what Kentucky outlets were referring to. Most people are like, how can it be salary based? It was not salary based. It was he wanted more NIL money, and they said we can't give that to you. You can go ahead and go to Arkansas. But he missed out last year. A guy he really wanted was Hunter Dickinson. Missed out on him to Kansas for NIL money. Now, he missed out on Kofi Coburn a couple years ago, but that one was less about NIL money. I think Illinois and Kentucky were around the same figure. It was actually Chin Coleman and Antigua, who recruited him that said, Kofi, stay at Illinois. We want you here if you want to come, but we think, your best case is stay at Illinois. So, that was a little bit different. But missing out on Dickinson, I think that was kind of the beginning of the end for him. He was like, okay, we're behind. We're not getting the guys we want. We're still getting freshmen, but we're not getting the guys we need to win.
Overall, what do you grade that potential hire by Arkansas?
A plus. Um, he's a better coach or a better recruiter. I don't know if he's a better coach, X and O's coach, but better recruiter than Beard. Uh, yeah, way better than Jerome Tang, which I didn't want to interrupt you earlier, but I actually read a report from it's an Arkansas outlet. I can't remember who it was that said that Jerome Tang actually was never even contacted by Arkansas officials. He just used that to get a raise. He went to Kansas State and said, "Hey," his agent said, "Hey, they're interested." When it was completely based off speculation, there was no actual contact there. Um, it was basically they said Calipari was the number one choice, um, but they didn't have enough money to get him at first, so they turned to Beard, went back to Calipari, and yeah, A plus. I mean, that's a program. Musselman actually came out and said it. He said landing a name like Calipari just shows what kind of program that is. First of all, respect for Musselman to come out and say that. Second of all, like I agree. I mean, it's a top 15 program in the country, in my opinion, of all time. Calipari is not leaving Kentucky for Minnesota like Tubby Smith did. He's only leaving Kentucky if he's at a place like Arkansas, a place like Illinois, Indiana, a place that's going to bring a bunch of fans that also is going to give him good NIL.
I I agree with you. I think it's a home run hire, honestly. Even if it doesn't work out and you're not winning in the postseason, if you're consistently a top 15 team, you're recruiting well, and he ends up leaving after 3 or 4 years instead of 5. I mean, he's gonna elevate the name of your program to a place where you can keep building off that, even if you don't have the postseason success. I mean, look, Kentucky's won one tournament game the last 4 years, and they still had no problem getting recruits with him there. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you'll start to see the same thing at Arkansas if all goes well with that. So now, even a much bigger hole to fill than what it was at Arkansas. Who takes over Kentucky from here?
Well, it seems that Billy Donovan has shut it down. Nate Oates has shut it down. Uh, Hurley publicly shut it down. Uh, I don't think Scott Drew is going to leave Baylor. I think a lot of people think he will, but he's been there 20 years. He's not going to leave that program now from what he's built it up to, especially with all the NIL he's getting there now. I mean, he landed George last year. Uh, I think that the guy they're going to have to target, and the only guy I think that has a buyout that shows he's willing to leave is Bruce Pearl. And I think that dude screams Kentucky to me. And
Oh,
everywhere I've read, he's interested.
perfect fit for Kentucky. His energy, he's got an ego on him a little bit. I mean, he fits Kentucky to a T. I mean, I think he'd thrive there.
And if not Kentucky, the only other name I can think of, because they're going to have to shoot big name that they can target, is to bring back Rick Pitino, who has publicly said he wished he never would have left Kentucky. So that tells me
I mean,
that he would, in a
that would
heartbeat,
be
go back.
that would be the funniest thing ever, though. If they hire Pitino.
Who do you think?
I mean, I I think Bruce Pearl would be the best fit, but I think most doable. Monetarily speaking, they will not have an issue getting anyone they want. But the top 4 choices that I texted you yesterday have all publicly said no. And number 5 I had on that list was Scott Drew. Has a low buyout. He's a great coach. He can build a program up. I don't think his personality fits Kentucky. I don't know if that's a good fit for him. I've seen a lot of smoke on Twitter about Mark Pope, and that one confuses me a little bit. I don't know a whole lot about him. I don't follow BYU that closely.
I believe he went to Kentucky and was an assistant there at one time. That's
And
where the draw came from. Here's
but
another name that I saw got thrown out today that people aren't considering that supposedly is going to get a call. Mark Few.
I mean that could be another good fit. I think if he goes to Kentucky, that'd be the place where he could actually get over the hump and win one.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll ever leave Gonzaga either, though. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. There's a lot of names publicly saying no, thank you, and you mentioned to me you've seen a couple places that mention Underwood, and like I told you, they let one coach leave for blue blood once, and Bill Self leaving for Kansas, and I don't see them letting Underwood leave again, or Underwood leave. I don't see them letting another one leave. Not after he just took them to an Elite Eight. I mean, Illinois got as much money as basically anybody in the country. I mean, it just shows by the guys they're targeting in the portal right now. They want. It's rumored that it's almost a guarantee right now. We'll see if it lasts, but if they're going to get two of Kylan Boswell, AJ Store, or uh, John L. Davis if he doesn't go to Michigan. So that's a topic for another day. But uh, you know, I just don't see they will match anything Kentucky offers.
Yeah, these last week and a half, the next 2 weeks are getting some guys paid. I can tell you that. I mean, Beard. I think
Absolutely.
Beard got an extension after the Arkansas smoke. Tang used it as to get an extension. Hurley was already going to get one. I'm sure no Oates is already going to get one. But I mean, I don't care who you are. If Kentucky calls you, you at least entertain that phone call, do you not?
I mean, yes and no. Unless you're Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley's probably or Bill Self. They're probably the only two guys that can't entertain that phone call because they're already at Blue Bloods and they're highly, highly successful. They won't get them, but if I'm the AD, I think my first call would actually be John Shire. He's not getting paid that much at Duke. He knows what it takes to coach a blue blood, and I think that they could actually convince him to leave with the right amount of money.
Yeah, I don't think that would convince him yet. This is only what year? It's year 2 or 3 for him. This is only
Uh,
year 2.
two, yeah,
I don't think you can get him to leave yet. He's a Duke alum now.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't see it happening yet. I also don't think he's that good of a coach, but we can save that argument for another time.
yeah. But if you want a guy that's similar to Calipari but goes and gets the portal, John Shire's a guy, and that's really what Kentucky people have been wanting. It's just a Calipari coach that recruits a portal.
It'll be I'm excited to see who they hire because I'm sure like there's a lot of smoke going on. I'm sure they've already kind of zeroed in on someone and we're just not hearing about it yet because Calipari up until 2 hours ago wasn't officially gone yet.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I mean, Coach Cal in his video said that they met a couple weeks ago, so this has been going on for a couple weeks.
did you see they released the video him and Barnhart after they lost, they did their like end of season review and it looked very awkward. I mean, you kind of knew something was up.
Yeah, I think that it's been known for a while, and truthfully, Kentucky probably already has some coach picked out, as you said.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the same thing at Arkansas. They'd probably been talking to him ever since Musselman started putting his foot out the door. I think that probably goes for any big school. Like they're always talking to someone. There's so much we don't know. But I
Absolutely.
got one last thing on Kentucky. How far down the ladder do you see the fallout of Calipari leaving going? I mean, obviously Kentucky's going to go get someone to fill their spot. But I mean, how far down does this go? Because it could. That's I guess this is probably one of the biggest coaching swings we've seen in quite a while.
I think maybe 2 or 3 more big jobs might open up. Because I mean, I told you I think Pearl's going to Kentucky, and, if Pearl goes to Kentucky and the Auburn job opens up, a lot of NIL money, a lot of money in general at that school, then that's gonna open up, that'll attract coaches, so on and so forth, so, we'll see.
It'll be fun. It leaves a lot for us to talk about in the future. Well, do you have anything else?
I don't think so, been another great episode.
I agree. Next week we'll try to get into a little bit of the portal. We'll wait for some of this coaching carousel madness to settle down a little bit. Let more people hit the portal, and we'll have a better idea of what's going on, and we'll start talking about that.
Yes, sir, can't wait to give you my predictions. I mean, I know you've already seen a couple of them, but nobody else has, so
It's like a whole new season.
oh, I the off season's almost as good as March Madness, I'll be honest with you.
Just 6 months longer, so that makes it better.
Yeah. Well, I'm Noah Carter. That's Grant Tanner. It's been another good episode. Thank you for listening in. Go ahead and like and subscribe.